The conference room went silent when Marcus Chun deleted my presentation file. He stood at the front, his finger hovering over the projector remote, while my 18 months of client relationship data vanished from the screen. This touchy-feely nonsense has no place in serious consulting, he announced to the entire strategy team. 23 people stared at their laptops, pretending they hadn't just witnessed my humiliation. I sat frozen in my chair, watching Marcus smirk at David Caldwell, our managing partner, who nodded in agreement. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. Marcus continued talking about efficiency metrics and billable hours, explaining why my client-centered approach would never work in the real world. David stood up and cleared his throat. Let's be honest here. Jordan's methods are naive. In this industry, you close deals and move on. You don't send birthday cards and remember people's dog names. The room erupted in nervous laughter. I gathered my notebook and walked out, my face burning with shame. But as I reached the elevator, something inside me shifted. Maybe I wasn't wrong. Maybe they were. That night, I stayed in the office until midnight, writing personalized emails to my 15 active clients. Each message referenced something specific from our last conversation. I asked Thomas Brennan about his daughter's soccer tournament. I congratulated Sarah Liu on her company's recent expansion. I thanked Michael Torres for trusting me with his business transformation project. These weren't automated messages or generic templates. They were real conversations with real people who had trusted me with their companies. The cleaning staff arrived at 11:30 and Maria, who had worked in the building for 12 years, waved at me through the glass door. I waved back, remembering that her son had just started college. The financial reports on my desk told a different story than my heart did. My billable hours were lower than everyone else's. My commission checks were smaller. My client retention rate was 94%, but nobody seemed to care about that number. Around midnight, my phone rang. It was Thomas Brennan, calling from his car. "Jordan, I need to talk to you about something," Thomas said, his voice tight with tension. My stomach dropped. He was going to fire me. He was going to say my approach wasn't working, that he needed someone more aggressive, more traditional. "I've been thinking about our contract," he continued. I closed my eyes and waited for the blow. "I'm pulling out of our agreement." There it was, the words I'd been dreading. "I appreciate everything you've done, but I've been hearing things. People are saying your methods are outdated, that you're not tough enough for this industry." I sat in silence, staring at the dark windows of the office building across the street. "I understand," I managed to say. "Thank you for letting me know." After we hung up, I sat alone in my office, wondering if everyone had been right. Maybe I was too soft for this business. Maybe caring about people was a weakness, not a strength. But then I remembered why I'd started this journey in the first place. 3 months earlier, I'd received a letter from Rachel Morrison, a former client I'd worked with during my first year in consulting. She'd written by hand, on actual paper, telling me how much my approach had meant to her small business. "You were the only consultant who ever listened to what I actually needed," she wrote. "Everyone else tried to sell me expensive solutions I couldn't afford. You helped me build something real." I kept that letter in my desk drawer and pulled it out whenever I doubted myself. Now, sitting in my empty office after Thomas's rejection, I read it again. The next morning, a new competitor named Victoria Hayes announced her consulting firm. Within 2 weeks, she had stolen 3 of my clients with promises of aggressive growth strategies and guaranteed results. People were calling her a rising star. They were calling me yesterday's news. My inbox filled with rejection emails. My calendar emptied out. Even my mentor, David Caldwell, suggested I consider a different career path. "You're a good person, Jordan," my wife Emma said over dinner that Friday. "But maybe that's not enough in your industry." I pushed my food around my plate, unable to eat. We'd been married for 6 years, and she'd supported every decision I'd made. Now, even she was starting to doubt, what if I started my own firm? I asked suddenly. The word surprised me as much as they surprised her. Emma set down her fork and looked at me carefully. "With what money? We barely have enough savings to cover 3 months of expenses." She was right. Our bank account showed exactly $8,000. Starting a consulting firm would require office space, insurance, legal fees, marketing materials. It was impossible. But that night, lying awake while Emma slept beside me, I made a decision. I would do it anyway. I would prove that my approach worked, that caring about people wasn't weakness, that authentic relationships could build something real and lasting. The next morning, I drafted my resignation letter. My new office was converted storage room above a coffee shop. Rent was $900 monthly, which was all I could afford. I had one desk, one chair, one laptop, and a phone number. No receptionist, no fancy letterhead, no team of associates. Just me and my belief that business could be done differently. My first decision was bold and possibly stupid. I offered free consultations for 3 months to anyone who needed business advice. No strings attached, no upsells, just genuine help. My former colleagues heard about this and laughed. He's giving away the work we charge thousands for, Marcus told people at industry events. He'll be bankrupt by Christmas. But something unexpected started happening. The people I helped for free began referring me to their networks. Within 6 weeks, I had my first paying client, a small manufacturing company owned by Patricia Chun. She'd heard about me from someone I'd helped. Then David Caldwell called. "Jordan, I want to buy your firm," he said without preamble. "Name your price." I laughed at David's offer. "I've been open for 2 months. Why would you want to buy my firm?" There was a pause on the line. "Because clients are asking about you. They want to know why you left. Some are considering leaving us to work with you." My heart raced, but I kept my voice steady. "I'm not selling, David. I'm building something different here." After I hung up, I sat back in my creaky chair and smiled. Word was spreading. Slowly but surely, people were discovering that there was another way to do business. Over the next 3 months, I signed 7 clients. All small companies. All operating on tight budgets. All desperate for someone who would actually listen to their problems instead of pushing expensive solutions. My monthly revenue reached $12,000. Not enough to impress anyone, but enough to keep going. Then Margaret Sutherland called. She owned a regional retail chain with 43 stores and had worked with David's firm for 8 years. "I want to meet you," she said. Margaret's headquarters occupied an entire floor of a downtown office building. I arrived in my only suit, carrying a worn briefcase, knowing I looked nothing like the slick consultants she was used to. She sat behind a massive desk, studying me with sharp brown eyes. "Tell me why I should hire you instead of the big firms," she said. I didn't have a prepared pitch. I didn't have glossy presentation materials or impressive case studies. I just told her the truth. Because I'll actually care about your business, not as a revenue source, but as something you've built with your own hands and heart. I'll learn your employees' names. I'll understand your challenges. And I'll never recommend something just because it increases my fees. Margaret leaned back in her chair. "David Caldwell says you're naive." I nodded. He's probably right. But my client seemed to appreciate that naivety. She smiled then, the first genuine expression I'd seen from her. "You're hired, but you'll be competing directly with Stellar Consulting for this contract." Stellar Consulting was Victoria Hayes' firm, the competitor who'd been stealing my clients. She'd built an impressive company in just 10 months, with aggressive marketing and promises of rapid results. The pitch meeting was scheduled for the following Tuesday. I spent the weekend preparing, but not with PowerPoint slides and data charts. I spent it learning everything I could about Margaret's business, her employees, her challenges, and her dreams for the future. When Tuesday arrived, Victoria presented first. Her team of 5 associates wheeled in professional displays and handed out leather-bound proposals. Their pitch was polished, impressive, and completely generic. Then it was my turn. I had 1 laptop, 1 notebook, and a genuine desire to help. I talked about Margaret's employees by name. I referenced conversations I'd had with her store managers. I proposed solutions tailored specifically to her unique situation, not copied from some template. When I finished, the room was quiet. Victoria looked at me with barely concealed contempt. Then Margaret spoke. "Jordan wins the contract. The contract with Margaret transformed my firm overnight. Her 43 stores meant 43 opportunities to prove my approach worked, but it also painted a target on my back. Within a month, David Caldwell and Victoria Hayes announced a strategic partnership. Their combined firm, Caldwell Stellar Consulting, had the resources and reputation to crush small independents like me. They immediately began a campaign to reclaim clients who'd left for my firm. They offered discounted rates, free services, aggressive guarantees. 3 of my 7 original clients called to apologize, saying they couldn't turn down such attractive offers. I understood. I didn't blame them. But I also didn't give up. Then the lawsuit arrived. Caldwell Stellar filed papers accusing me of improper client solicitation and theft of proprietary methodologies. The legal fees alone could bankrupt me. I sat in my tiny office, holding the lawsuit documents, wondering if this was the end. My phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello, Jordan," said a voice I didn't recognize. "We should talk." The caller wouldn't give his name, but he offered to connect me with a lawyer who specialized in defending against frivolous lawsuits. "Why would you help me?" I asked suspiciously. "Let's just say I believe in what you're building," he replied. "Someone needs to prove that business can be done differently." The lawyer, Rebecca Foster, reviewed my case and smiled grimly. "They have no grounds. This is intimidation, pure and simple. But fighting it will cost you about $50,000. I didn't have $50,000. I barely had $5,000 after paying my office rent and basic expenses. My clients started calling, worried about the legal battle. 2 more pulled their contracts, citing concerns about stability. Margaret Sutherland remained loyal, but even she expressed doubts. "Maybe you should settle," Emma suggested one night. "Just make this go away." I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. The business I'd built was crumbling, and I had no way to stop it. Then Rebecca called with unexpected news. "Your mysterious benefactor paid my retainer," Rebecca said. "He wants you to fight this." I was stunned. "Who is he?" "He won't say. But he's given me authorization to mount a full defense, including a countersuit for malicious prosecution." We filed our response the next day, and I did something risky. I wrote a public letter explaining my philosophy, my approach to client relations, and why I believed authentic relationships mattered more than aggressive sales tactics. The letter went viral. Within 48 hours, it had been shared across social media platforms by thousands of small business owners who felt ignored by traditional consulting firms. Major business publications picked up the story. Suddenly, I wasn't just defending myself against a lawsuit. I was leading a movement. Then David Caldwell made an announcement that shocked the industry. He was merging his portion of Caldwell Stellar Consulting with the largest firm in the country, creating a consulting giant with offices in 37 cities. It looked like a victory for him, but I'd soon learn it was actually the beginning of his downfall. 2 weeks after David's merger announcement, I received an email from someone named Robert Kim. He'd been Victoria Hayes' director of client services before quitting in disgust. "She's been lying about her results," Robert wrote. "Most of her success stories are fabricated. Clients are unhappy, but she's threatening them with breach of contract lawsuits if they speak publicly." He attached documentation, dozens of emails showing Victoria pressuring clients into providing fake testimonials, manipulating data to inflate her success rates, and using aggressive legal tactics to silence complaints. This was explosive information, but using it felt wrong, like stooping to their level. I met with Rebecca to discuss our options. "We could leak this to the press," she said. "It would destroy Victoria's reputation." I shook my head. "That's not who I am, but we can offer her clients a better alternative." Instead of attacking Victoria publicly, I reached out quietly to her clients, offering genuine help without mentioning her firm's problems. Within 3 weeks, 4 of her major clients had switched to my firm. Victoria must have known Robert had talked to me, because she started making mistakes. The industry conference in Chicago was my first major public appearance since the lawsuit began. Victoria was scheduled to speak on a panel about rapid business growth. I was scheduled to speak about sustainable client relationships. We'd both been invited before the legal battle started, and neither of us wanted to back down. The conference center was packed with business owners and consultants. I sat in the audience during Victoria's panel, watching her describe aggressive tactics for acquiring and managing clients. Everything she said contradicted what I believed, but the audience seemed impressed. Then it was my turn to speak. I walked onto the stage, looked out at 300 faces, and told the truth about my journey. I talked about being mocked and rejected, about starting my firm in a storage room above a coffee shop, about believing that caring about people wasn't weakness. The audience was silent. Then someone started clapping. Then another person. Soon the entire room was on its feet. After my talk, 17 business owners approached me asking about my services. But the most surprising approach came from David Caldwell himself. "I want to buy your firm," David said, cornering me in the conference hallway. $5 million. Cash. You can retire at 36 and never worry about money again. $5 million. It was more money than I'd ever imagined having. I could pay off our mortgage, secure Emma's future, never stress about finances again. Why? I asked. David's expression was hard to read. Because you're becoming a problem. Your approach is making traditional firms look bad. Clients are starting to ask questions we don't want to answer. I understood then. This wasn't a compliment. It was a threat disguised as an opportunity. "I'm not selling," I said. David's face darkened. "You're making a mistake. The industry will chew you up and spit you out." I walked away, my hands shaking but my resolve firm. That night, Emma and I talked for hours about the offer. She wanted me to take it. "We could have a real life," she said. "No more stress, no more struggling." But I couldn't do it. Selling meant betraying everyone who believed in my approach. It meant admitting they were right, and I was wrong. 3 days after I rejected David's offer, I received an invitation to meet my mysterious benefactor. The meeting was scheduled at an expensive restaurant downtown. I arrived early, nervous and curious. The man who stood to greet me was Harrison Mitchell, CEO of Mitchell Global Industries, one of the largest manufacturing companies in the world. I recognized him immediately from business magazines and news articles. "Why?" I asked, sitting down across from him. "Why have you been helping me?" Harrison smiled. 20 years ago, I was exactly where you are now, fighting against an industry that valued transactions over relationships. I nearly gave up a dozen times. But someone believed in me, helped me when I needed it most. Now I'm passing that forward. He explained that he'd been watching my career for 2 years, impressed by my client retention rates and authentic approach. When the lawsuit started, he decided to intervene. "I want to offer you a partnership," Harrison said. "Mitchell Global Industries needs the kind of consulting approach you provide. I want your firm to handle all our regional operations, exclusively." Harrison's offer was staggering. Mitchell Global Industries operated in 43 countries, with annual revenue exceeding $20 billion. If my firm became their exclusive regional consultant, I'd need to expand immediately, hiring dozens of consultants and opening offices worldwide. It was terrifying and exciting and completely overwhelming. "I need time to think," I told Harrison. He nodded. "Take a week. But understand that this offer is time-sensitive. I'm retiring next year, and I want this partnership established before I leave." I spent the next week in a blur of planning and calculations. My tiny firm above the coffee shop couldn't handle a contract this size. I'd need real office space, a professional team, systems and processes I'd never had considered before. But I'd also maintain control. I'd still be able to do business my way, valuing relationships over transactions. On the 7th day, I called Harrison and accepted. Within a month, my firm transformed into a legitimate global consulting company. We opened offices in 7 cities, hired 32 consultants, and began working with Mitchell Global's operations across 3 continents. And that's when David Caldwell made his move. Caldwell Stellar announced a hostile takeover attempt on my firm. Since I'd grown so quickly, they argued, I must have used their proprietary methods and client lists. They demanded I either sell to them or face another lawsuit. The business media covered this story extensively. Some publications portrayed me as a scrappy underdog fighting corporate bullies. Others suggested I wasn't over my head and should accept the inevitable. The showdown came at a pitch meeting for Jackson Industries, a potential client worth $12 million annually. Both Caldwell Stellar and my firm were competing for the contract. David and Victoria brought a team of 20 consultants. I brought 3 people: myself, Rebecca Foster for legal counsel, and Sarah Chun, my new director of client relations. The Jackson Industries executives listened to Caldwell Stellar's polished presentation, promising rapid growth and industry-leading strategies. Then they listened to our presentation about building sustainable relationships and genuine partnerships. When we finished, David stood up, his face red with anger. "You're making a mistake," he told the executives. "Jordan's approach doesn't scale. It's not sustainable." The Jackson Industries CEO, William Park, stood and walked to the window. We all waited in tense silence. "I've been in business for 37 years, William said finally. "I've worked with dozens of consulting firms. They all promised results, delivered reports, and disappeared. Last month, my father died. Only one person sent a personal condolence card: Jordan Martinez." He turned to face David. "Your firm didn't even acknowledge my loss, even though we'd met twice that week. That told me everything I need to know about your priorities. We won the contract." But David wasn't finished. That afternoon, Caldwell Stellar launched a coordinated attack across social media and business publications, claiming I had manipulated William emotionally and used unethical tactics to win the contract. The smear campaign was vicious and well-funded. My firm's reputation took a serious hit as negative articles and fake reviews flooded the internet. I spent 72 hours watching my business credibility crumble online. Then something unexpected happened. A video I'd recorded 3 months earlier, explaining my philosophy and approach, went viral. Within 24 hours, it had 30 million views. The viral video changed everything. Business owners across the country started sharing their own stories about being ignored by traditional consulting firms. Employees talked about feeling like numbers instead of people. My inbox filled with thousands of messages from people who wanted to work with someone who actually cared. Major business publications ran articles about the authenticity revolution in consulting. Forbes featured me on their cover with the headline, "Can kindness disrupt a cutthroat industry?" The backlash against Caldwell Stellar's smear campaign was swift and brutal. Clients started leaving their firm, citing the contrast between their aggressive tactics and my relationship-focused approach. Within 6 weeks, Caldwell Stellar lost 40% of their client base. David Caldwell appeared on financial news programs trying to control the damage, but his explanations sounded hollow and defensive. Meanwhile, my firm's growth accelerated beyond anything I'd imagined. We opened offices in 14 countries. Our team grew to 200 consultants. Annual revenue projections hit $80 million. And every single client relationship was built on the same foundation I'd established in that storage room above a coffee shop: genuine care, authentic communication, and real human connection. The phone call that surprised me most came from Thomas Brennan, the client who'd rejected me 18 months earlier. "Jordan, I made a mistake," Thomas said, his voice heavy with regret. "I left you for Victoria's firm because she promised aggressive growth. Instead, she nearly destroyed my company with reckless strategies." He wasn't alone. Over the next 3 months, 11 former clients reached out asking if they could work with my firm again. Each conversation was difficult. These were people who doubted me, who'd chosen flashy promises over authentic relationships. Part of me wanted to reject them the way they'd rejected me, but that wasn't who I was. I accepted them back, not because I needed their business, but because I understood that people make mistakes and deserve second chances. My team questioned this decision. "Why would we work with people who abandoned you?" Sarah Chin asked during a leadership meeting. I explained that holding grudges was the old way of doing business. We were building something different, something based on understanding and forgiveness, not revenge. Harrison Mitchell called me with an unexpected proposal. "I want you to start a mentorship program," he said. "Teach other consultants your approach. Share what you've learned." The idea terrified me. Teaching meant making myself vulnerable, sharing strategies that could potentially create competitors. But Harrison insisted. This isn't about you anymore, Jordan. It's about changing how business is done everywhere. We launched the Mitchell Martinez Mentorship Program 6 months later. We accepted 30 aspiring consultants in our first cohort, all people who'd struggled in traditional firms because they valued relationships over aggressive sales tactics. I spent 2 days each week teaching them everything I'd learned about building authentic client relationships. We covered practical skills like active listening and personalized communication, but also deeper concepts about viewing clients as partners rather than transactions. The program was free for participants. Harrison and I funded it entirely because we believed in the mission. Within a year, our mentorship graduates had started 19 consulting firms across 7 countries, all based on relationship-focused principles. The industry was beginning to transform. The Global Consulting Excellence Award ceremony took place in Geneva, Switzerland. I'd been nominated in the category of Innovative Business Practices, alongside consulting firms that had been operating for decades. Emma sat beside me in the grand ballroom, squeezing my hand as they announced the finalists. When they called my name as a winner, I walked to the stage in a daze. The presenter, a distinguished woman who'd revolutionized supply chain consulting in the 1990s, handed me the award and whispered, "You've reminded us all why we started doing this work." My acceptance speech was short. I thanked Harrison for believing in me. I thanked Rebecca for defending me. I thanked my team for embracing an unconventional approach. But mostly, I thanked my client for taking a chance on someone who did business differently. The award generated enormous publicity. Within a week, I received invitations to speak at conferences on 3 continents. The United Nations invited me to participate in a panel about ethical business practices. My firm's waiting list for new clients grew to 18 months, and David Caldwell called to congratulate me, his voice carrying a note of genuine respect I'd never heard before. 6 months after winning the Global Consulting Excellence Award, I stood in my corner office overlooking the city skyline and reflected on the journey. My firm now employed 400 consultants across 23 countries. Annual revenue had reached $200 million. We'd been featured in every major business publication and had become the case study for relationship-focused business practices. But the money and recognition weren't what mattered most. What mattered was the email I'd received that morning from a small business owner in Ohio who'd worked with one of our consultants. For the first time in my 20 years of business, I feel like someone actually cares about my success, she wrote. That was the real victory. Then my assistant informed me that Victoria Hayes had requested a meeting. She wanted to discuss joining our firm as a consultant. The irony wasn't lost on me, but I agreed to meet her, curious about what she'd say. When Victoria walked into my office, she looked different. The aggressive confidence was gone, replaced by something that looked like humility. "I was wrong," she said simply, "about everything." Victoria's confession lasted 2 hours. She explained how her aggressive tactics had initially brought success, but ultimately left her isolated and unhappy. Clients had left, employees had quit, and she'd realized that building a business on manipulation and pressure was unsustainable. "I want to learn your approach," she said. "If you'll teach me." I thought about the young consultant I'd been. Sitting in that conference room, while Marcus Chun deleted my presentation and mocked my methods. I thought about every rejection, every doubt, every moment I'd wondered if I was wrong to believe that kindness mattered in business. "We have a mentorship program," I told Victoria. "The next cohort starts in 3 months. You should apply." She looked surprised, maybe expecting me to reject her outright. But that wasn't the legacy I wanted to build. As Victoria left my office, I turned back to the window and thought about the future. My firm would continue growing, helping more clients, training more consultants. But more importantly, we'd proven that business could be done differently. That success didn't require abandoning your humanity. That caring about people was actually the smartest strategy of all. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Proud of you, always have been." I smiled, knowing that the real success wasn't measured in revenue or awards. It was measured in relationships built, people helped, and lives changed through the simple, radical act of treating others with genuine care and respect. That was a legacy worth building.